Physical and chemical changes and properties. Physical properties are properties that do not change the chemical nature of the object, whereas chemical properties can change the nature of the object. Physical changes do not create new substances, whereas chemical changes do create new substances. Physical and chemical properties can be either intensive or extensive. Intensive properties do not depend on the amount of the substance, whereas extensive properties do. An intensive property would be density. Density does not depend on how much of the substance you have, whereas an extensive property, such as mass, does. Physical properties are generally intensive because they do not change with the amount of the substance. Some of these properties include color, smell, freezing point, boiling point, attractive and repulsiveness, opacity, viscosity, and density. Chemical properties are generally extensive because they do depend on how much of the substance you have. These include the heat of combustion, the reactivity with water, and pH and pOH. Physical changes can be undone and you can get back the original material. An example of this would be either a phase change or the crushing of a can. A chemical change can't be undone. This can be burning or rusting. So a physical change would be if I go from ice to water and back, and a chemical change would be if I take a piece of paper and burn it. I can get my original ice back by freezing the water, so that's a physical change. But I can't get my piece of paper back. It's now turned to ashes. That's a chemical change. See if you can do this. On a piece of paper, divide it up into 4 squares and label the 4 squares physical change, chemical change, physical property, and chemical property. Underneath, you see some things that can be either a physical change, a chemical change, a physical property, or a chemical property. Pause the video here and see if you can put them in the right spots. So how did you do? The physical properties were color, freezing point, and opacity. There was only one chemical property, which was pH. The physical changes were ripping and boiling, and the chemical changes were burning, rusting, and combustion. Notice the connection between the physical properties and the physical changes. If I had said boiling point instead of freezing point, well, that connection would be the physical property of the boiling point goes along with the physical change of boiling. So, the physical properties are connected to a physical change, and there are chemical properties that are connected to chemical changes. So what have you learned? We've learned the physical properties are properties that do not change the chemical makeup of a substance, but chemical properties do. we've learned that physical changes don't make new substances and can be undone, whereas chemical changes make new substances and can't be undone. We've also learned about intensive properties and extensive properties, and that intensive properties depend on how much of the substance you have, and extensive do.